After my death, I learned I was just a side character in a book. The protagonist was my older sister, and I was nothing more than a speck of dust by her side. The god spoke indifferently. I can send you back into the book and let you take revenge on anyone. I thought for a long time before whispering. I have no revenge to take. If possible, please help me. I want to know what it feels like to be truly loved by someone with all their heart. Chapter 1. Perhaps the only moment I ever shown in the book was when I died for the protagonist. I was a timid and cowardly person until I pushed my sister out of harm's way. I didn't know I could possess such strength to shove her toward the sidewalk, where Duncan caught her tightly in his arms. And then I was hit and flung into the air by a car that couldn't brake in time. My life flashed before my eyes. Strangely, I could even remember the time I was still in my mother's womb. I relived my childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood in a whirlwind. I had always been so invisible. When I was little, my parents used to say, "Bella, your sister's health is fragile. Be more understanding, okay? If you want anything, just tell us. Don't fight with your sister over it." I always knew what my sister wanted, but I never knew what I wanted. Maybe what I wanted most was a bit of praise from my parents when I behaved. Like, "Bella is so sensible." When I began to develop feelings for someone, Duncan told me apologetically, "Bella, you're amazing, but..." "I'm sorry. The one I've always liked is Valeria. Everyone always said I was great, but they always chose my sister." I had already guessed how it would end before I even confessed. My youth ended at 22. Just as I stepped out of university, I felt as though I had left my body behind, becoming incredibly light. I saw my sister, unable to look at my body, clutching her chest tightly in Duncan's arms, her tears falling in heavy drops. My parents hadn't snapped out of it either. Their luggage fell to the ground and they didn't even notice. After a long pause, a shrill voice finally cut through the hot, heavy air. "Bella." They couldn't see me. I couldn't control myself either. I drifted aimlessly, not knowing where I was going, until I entered a boundless white space. A stunningly beautiful god looked down at me. "Bella, side character of White Birch, died saving the protagonist. Normal conditions met. I can grant you one wish." The god told me that I was just a side character, destined to exist in the protagonist's orbit, to make her shine brighter. When I was no longer useful, I would simply fade away. I murmured the book's title, White Birch. My sister's name was Valeria. Our father had hoped she'd be as resilient as a white birch tree. So this book was written about her. No wonder. No wonder. Then, against my will, a little joy surfaced. The god asked me what I was smiling about. I smiled as I spoke, though my throat felt choked. I finally understand why everyone loved my sister. It wasn't because I wasn't good enough. I could feel that people did love me, but that love was so easy for them to forget, to overlook. If I wasn't careful, I couldn't even find it. I know there's resentment in your heart. I can send you back into the book to take revenge on anyone you want, rid you of all attachments, and let you re-enter the cycle of reincarnation. I thought for a long time and then shook my head. Everyone treated me well. I have no one to take revenge on. I looked at the god. "If possible, please help me understand what it feels like to be truly loved." The god sighed and sent me away, his voice echoing faintly in the distance. "When your attachments fade, so shall you enter the cycle once more." Chapter 2. My name is Bella. My dad gave me this name because he hoped I'd be a pretty little girl. My sister's name is Valeria. She was born with a heart condition, and Dad wanted her to be as resilient as a birch tree. My sister and I were never apart. We were born together, grew up together, and spent all 6 years of elementary school in the same school, in the same class. At Dad's special request, the teachers always seated us together so I could take care of her. Some boys gave us nicknames. Valeria was the princess, and I was the princess's little minion. Every time she heard that, Valeria would talk back. Of course, her voice was always soft. Her body couldn't handle any strong emotions. She was incredibly strong. Even when she was in excruciating pain, sweating all over, she wouldn't cry. Unfortunately, I didn't live up to the meaning of my name. I looked average. While Valeria was truly beautiful, her eyes spoke volumes. Her skin was pale and flawless, like a delicate porcelain doll. Sometimes I wondered whether our parents and teachers paid more attention to her because of her illness, or because of her looks. But I never asked. I'd seen her during one of her episodes. I knew she didn't like people constantly fussing over her. She especially hated when others mentioned her illness. Since I was very young, so young I can't even remember it clearly, I've always heard our parents say to me, even though you're the younger sister, you have to give in to Valeria. Don't make her upset. I was always obedient. Whenever others talked about me, my parents would summarize me in just a few words, well-behaved and sensible. But when they talked about Valeria, it seemed like they could never say enough. Though her body was fragile, Valeria's mind was anything but. She would do things I'd never even imagined. Once, she climbed up to the rooftop and waved at me to join her. My legs went weak with fear, and I choked out, "Valeria, come down. It's too high." She laughed boldly. "Don't be scared. It's so breezy and cool up here." When I couldn't find her, I called Dad. He rushed home, found her on the rooftop, and watched as she slowly climbed back down. He ran over and shielded her with his arms. Not daring to breathe too hard, he carried her downstairs. As he passed me, he didn't spare me a single glance. My eyes were full of tears. I couldn't even see the path properly. I tripped on the mess of ropes on the rooftop. It hurt a lot. But Dad didn't even turn around to check on me. Back at home, Mom was already waiting. They brought Valeria into her room, and only after she had fallen asleep did they quietly step out and close the door. My arm had been scraped and the wound had already scabbed over. But somehow it hurt even more when they finally looked my way. I thought maybe Mom would pull me into her arms and ask if I was okay. I imagined Dad would bring me the first aid kit. But none of that happened. Instead, Dad's slap sent me toppling to the ground. The pain in my arm was nothing compared to the burning sting on my face. A loud ringing filled my ears. When the dizziness subsided, I heard Mom crying. "I was only out for a short while. You couldn't even look after your sister for that long? What would we have done if something had happened to her?" I had never been hit before. Dad had always been so gentle. The shock of it all left me too scared to cry out loud. But I couldn't stop the tears. I was trembling all over. Later, Mom hugged me and apologized. She said Dad didn't mean to hit me, they had just been too worried about Valeria. I think I was 6 years old then. Not even in elementary school yet. I don't really remember my exact age. I only remember crying under the covers for days afterward. That was when I understood, taking care of Valeria wasn't just something I should do when it was convenient. It was something I had to do, always, no matter what. Chapter 3. When I was in middle school, a new family moved in across the street. They had 2 sons. The older one, Duncan, was 2 years ahead of us. He didn't talk much, but he was very attentive. The younger one, Jordan, was only a few days older than us, sunny, cheerful, with a smile that lit up his whole face. After they moved in, Dad stopped taking Valeria and me to school. Valeria had wanted to go by herself anyway. Now that there were 2 boys walking with us, Dad was slightly more at ease, but I knew he secretly followed us for half a month. Duncan would deliberately slow his pace so Valeria could catch up, while Jordan walked with his headphones on. The moment I glanced at him a few times too many, he noticed. He smiled with his eyes and pulled out one earbud. "Were you calling me?" I quickly looked down and shook my head. But then, suddenly, I felt a tickle in my ear. He handed me one of his earbuds. "We're in the same grade. Let's listen together." From the earbud came a recording of our English textbook. I froze. My expression dropped without me realizing it. I didn't like English. Who on earth listens to textbook recordings on the way to school? That whole walk was painful, but what I didn't expect was that from then on, every day, Jordan would hand me his earbud. I told him I needed to keep an eye on my sister. He replied, "My brother can watch her. Don't worry about it." Not worrying about my sister, that was the most secretive, most selfish thought I'd ever had. I had never said it out loud, and I had never acted on it, but I had thought about it. And that one casual sentence from Jordan felt like it touched a nerve deep in my heart. I reached out and took the earbud from him, but inside, guilt churned so violently I could barely breathe. English needs constant listening to develop a feel for it. You can't just keep copying from the textbook. Jordan said this beside my ear. He was going through puberty and his voice wasn't exactly pleasant, so he always spoke slowly and carefully, like a neighborhood committee secretary giving a speech. I couldn't help but laugh. He immediately shut his mouth. Lips pursed, a faint blush spreading across his face. That day, he came to my class to find me and handed me a workbook, but didn't say a single word. Inside were highlighted notes and summaries of study methods he had written out for me. I remembered Jordan had scored first in English on the entrance exam, but his Chinese was weak, which dragged down his total score to 10th in the grade. After school that evening, I walked up to him and softly said thank you. He glanced at me, his expression odd, and only replied with a quiet mem. I didn't realize anything was wrong at the time. In the days that followed, Jordan continued silently handing me the earbud. When I finally noticed he wasn't speaking to me anymore, I started to get anxious. Why isn't he talking to me? Did he start to dislike me? Did I do something to upset him? He had been so kind to me. I didn't want him to hate me, but I was timid. I didn't dare approach him first. To thank Duncan and Jordan for walking Valeria and me to and from school every day, my parents invited their family over for dinner. At the table, Jordan sat across from me, but he didn't say a word, didn't even look my way. Dad chatted with their father, Mom, as she talked, kept placing food in Valeria's bowl so she wouldn't have to stand up. I stared blankly at the rice in my bowl. It tasted like ash in my mouth. Bella, is there anything you want to eat? The voice was awkward, still stuck in the middle of a changing pitch, familiar and unfamiliar all at once. I looked up at Jordan. His ears were red. You can't reach the dishes from that side. Is there something you want? I'll get it for you. My parents would ask me what I wanted, too, but not wanting to trouble them, I usually just shook my head. But this time, I looked at his face, then at the plate of shrimp in front of him. I wanted to talk to him, so I said, I want some shrimp. Mom didn't like troubling others. She glanced at me and said, she can reach it. Just stand up for a second. I lowered my head and nodded, wanting to say I could get it myself. But Jordan stood up immediately. He leaned over, picked up the plate of celery in front of me, and replaced it with the plate of shrimp. The clink of porcelain meeting glass rang out clearly. I felt my body tremble slightly. There was a moment of numbness. Aunt Lynn scolded him for being impolite, but I couldn't hear her anymore. That crisp sound echoed in my ears, loud and piercing. I couldn't remember the last time someone had placed a whole plate of my favorite food in front of me. Valeria and I had similar tastes. We liked many of the same dishes, except I didn't like cilantro. I could tolerate it, but Valeria loved it. So even the dishes I liked always had that faint taste I didn't. But not this plate of shrimp. The color was rich and vibrant, the scent fragrant, exactly the way I liked it. My eyes started to burn for no reason. I lowered my head further, letting my bangs cover my eyes so no one could see my expression. Not until after dinner, while we were outside waiting for the car, I slowly shuffled over to Jordan's side and quietly said thank you. He looked surprised, raised his eyebrows slightly, and gave a soft cough. It's nothing. My mom makes even better shrimp. Next time you come over, I'll ask her to make some for you. I nodded. Okay. A moment later, he suddenly looked down and asked, why do you always hide yourself? I froze under his clear gaze. He waved his hands around awkwardly, gesturing vaguely. Back at dinner, I swear it felt like you were trying to crawl under the table. His gestures were ridiculous. I couldn't help but softly argue back, though not very confidently. I wasn't. The truth was, I was hiding a lot of things. When you have too many things on your mind, they fill your eyes. So I kept my head down, hoping no one would see through me. But right now, he was looking straight at me. I couldn't lower my head, so I shifted my eyes away instead. If you say you weren't, then you weren't. Jordan shrugged. If there's ever anything you need help with, just tell me. I clenched my fists. That one sentence of his gave me a strange, fragile courage. I looked straight at him and said, then, could you keep talking to me? Jordan blinked, his eyes widening slightly. He scratched his neck, a faint blush spreading across his face, and muttered, yeah. I got it. I liked being around Jordan, even when we didn't talk. It felt easy being with him, though we weren't in the same class and usually only passed each other in the hallway. He always came to walk beside me on the way to and from school. He'd hand me an earbud and repeat patiently, you've got to speak up when you talk. Don't be afraid. Valeria once overheard and chimed in, Bella started speaking up. Our English teacher said she's made great progress, her pronunciation is excellent. My face flushed. I tugged at Valeria's sleeve, and she laughed as she looked at me. Getting shy? Jordan laughed too, while Duncan walked ahead, glancing back at the three of us. That kind of attention made me feel unsure of what to do with myself. Chapter 4. I wasn't used to speaking in front of people. I was always afraid my voice would disappear into the air, unheard, leaving me standing there, breath held in anxious silence, unnoticed by everyone. When I first started learning English, I never dared to speak. I went from unremarkable to invisible, and naturally, my English never improved. By middle school, it had become my weakest subject. But today, my English teacher approached me and asked if I would like to participate in the school's English speech competition. She said she'd give me special coaching after school if I agreed. She gave me time to think it over. Before Jordan could even walk into the classroom, I tugged on his backpack and said, "The teacher asked me to enter the speech competition." He turned around, opened his mouth with a surprised awe, then quickly smiled. "Then I guess we're rivals now. Don't think I'll go easy on you." His smile was infectious. It lifted everyone who saw it. Even my lingering shyness was swept away, holding back my tiny spark of joy. I told my parents about it at the dinner table. I saw the flicker of delight on their faces. Then, out of habit, I glanced at Valeria. Only when I saw her calm expression did I feel safe enough to accept their praise. They said, "Bella, that's amazing." I'd always been ordinary. There was never anything that made them proud enough to tell others about their youngest daughter, Bella. But maybe now, maybe just a little, they'd finally have something to say. I told them the teacher would be training me after school. Mom immediately asked, "Then you won't be coming home with your sister?" My breath caught, like being pricked by a pine needle, small enough to bear, but it still hurt. "If I do register, I'll be getting home later," I said, gripping my chopsticks and looking at them. Should I do it? My parents exchanged glances and didn't respond right away. The joy on their faces receded like the tide, leaving behind only the faint wrinkles of a fading smile. Valeria's expression darkened. She looked at them, then gently said to me, "You should go." "Why not? You're amazing. You should show that to the world." She turned to our parents. "Bella's getting training, and besides, Duncan, Jordan, and I all walked together. If anything happened to me, what could she do? She's just a little girl." Mom interrupted her. "Don't say something so ominous." "What do you mean something happens to you?" Valeria interrupted right back. "Exactly. Nothing will happen to me." She patted my shoulder. "Tell the teacher tomorrow, you're going." Her eyes were soft and full of warmth. Dad set down his chopsticks, smiling again. "Of course she's going. Why wouldn't she? Worst case, I'll just go pick Valeria up myself." "Bella, go compete." Compared to Mom, Dad cared more for me, but I was still afraid of him. Even when he was kind, that fragmented fear inside me never quite disappeared. That night, Valeria and I shared a bed, lying shoulder to shoulder, neither of us falling asleep. Suddenly, she sighed. "I really envy you, being able to take gym class. Being able to compete. I'm like a broken doll. I'm not allowed to do anything." I turned to look at her, but I didn't say the words that surfaced in my heart. Because I envied her, too. I envied the attention she received, the care, the love. Chapter 5. But those words, I could never say them out loud. Valeria was sick. If I still clung to the love she received and refused to let go, wouldn't that make me unbearably petty? "But you're amazing, Valeria. I wish I were half as good at studying as you are." I am amazing." She rolled over and looked at me through the darkness. "That's why. Bella, if there's something you want to do, then go for it. I won't be your burden." Her words hit me right in the chest, soft and aching, leaving it swollen and sore. I didn't even think before blurting out, "You're not a burden." Valeria was excellent, always ranked near the top of the class, never tired of helping me with my schoolwork. She was anything but a burden. I fumbled under the covers and held her hand. "I love you the most." Mom and Dad might focus more on her, but Valeria never forgot to include me. I was supposed to be the one taking care of her. But back when the boys at school called me the princess's little sidekick, it was she who stood in front of me, refusing to back down. I tugged her sleeve and said, Don't be mad. Let's just ignore them. Valeria threw her book at them. She's my sister, not a sidekick. If you keep giving her stupid nicknames, I'll tell the teacher you're trying to make me have an episode. Valeria had always protected me, too. When English coaching began, the very first lesson wasn't about language at all, it was posture. The teacher pushed my bangs aside and made me stand against the wall. Public speaking is about presence. You can't shrink like that. From now on, chin up, shoulders back, walk like you mean it. Understand? I held the materials she'd given me and stepped out of the office, only to see someone standing against the wall nearby. He had been staring out at the field, but when he looked back, our eyes met. Jordan straightened up and walked toward me. I'm on duty this week. Let's head home together. I followed behind him, staring at the backs of his shoes while my thoughts moved slowly. The teacher said you're not allowed to look down, right? I hadn't even noticed when he turned around. He stopped suddenly in front of me, making me jump. As I looked at him, I couldn't help it. My instinct was to lower my gaze again, but Jordan raised a hand and tapped my forehead. Why are you like a little snail? You just curl right back into your shell whenever something happens. I answered him. But snails carry their homes with them. Isn't it nice to always have a place to go back to? He clasped his hands behind his head and turned to walk ahead again. I'm not gonna argue about snails, but if you keep looking down, you're definitely going to lose to me at the competition. I stood still for a moment, then ran to catch up. I had never thought much about winning or losing. It was just, after hiding for so long, someone had finally found me, and now that people were expecting something from me, I didn't want to let them down. Jordan glanced at me a few more times. Why do you look so happy all of a sudden? I didn't tell him. Their presence made me feel warm, like sunlight gently melting through me. During the 2 weeks of coaching, all my spare time was filled with English. But somehow, I didn't hate English anymore. 2 days before the competition, the teacher told me to trim my bangs so they wouldn't cover my eyes. At home, I stood in front of the mirror with a pair of scissors, cutting them bit by bit. Strands of hair fell to the floor. I combed my bangs neatly to the side. Now, my eyes were fully visible. No longer could I simply bow my head and hide. My heart beat a little faster. I wasn't used to how bright and open everything felt. I stepped out of my room and headed into the kitchen, looking for Mom. Do you need help with anything? She was cooking with her back to me. Go do your homework, or practice. I don't need help. I touched my freshly cut bangs. And just then, the sound of the door opening echoed through the house. Dad was back from work. He said he'd picked up some fresh river shrimp from the market. I ran over and took the bag from his hands. Dad rubbed my head and said, Bella. Suddenly, a loud crash came from Valeria's room. I froze. Dad hadn't even taken off his shoes. He rushed straight over. Valeria was clutching her chest, sitting in a chair, her face pale as paper and her breathing sharp and rapid. The sound of the ambulance siren stirred the whole apartment building. My parents anxiously helped Valeria into the ambulance. I tried to follow, but I was too small. I couldn't keep up. I was quickly swallowed by the crowd. By the time I made it downstairs, the vehicle had already driven off. Duncan grabbed my arm and asked, Did your sister have an episode? Why did it happen so suddenly? Jordan pushed him aside. Why are you yelling at her? How would she know? I shook my head tightly, lips pressed together. My tears wouldn't stop no matter how much I wiped them away. Duncan softened his tone and apologized to me, but I just kept shaking my head. Then I turned and ran back home, planting myself next to the phone. I hadn't closed the door. Jordan walked in and stood beside me. Valeria's going to be okay. Don't worry too much. Didn't she say she wanted to see you in the competition? Tears splashed endlessly onto the screen of my phone. The dark surface reflected the outline of my face. How could I not worry? I'd always been worrying. I was terrified that one day, I might lose my sister forever. Chapter 6. The living room light stayed on all night. Jordan sat beside me the whole night, too. I drifted in and out of sleep, and the moment the phone rang, I jolted awake and picked up. I spoke, voice trembling. How's Valeria? Dad sounded exhausted. She's okay now. Everything's fine. Your mom and I can't come back yet. Can you manage school and meals by yourself? I nodded right away, then remembered he couldn't see me and quickly added, Yes. When I hung up, I felt completely drained, like a mountain had crashed down on me. Leaning against the couch, I blinked, and a few leftover tears welled up again in my dry eyes. Jordan said, "Maybe you should take the day off." "No need." The words came out rough and dry. I went to pack my school bag, but just as I stepped out of the room, Jordan grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his house. Aunt Lynn had already prepared a breakfast just for me. I was out of it the whole day. After school, I didn't go home. Duncan, Jordan, and I went straight to the hospital. Valeria lay on the hospital bed with a ventilator. She was already awake. The moment she saw me, she waved. I walked up to her and asked, "Does it still hurt, Valeria?" Her eyes curved in a faint smile. She opened her mouth to speak, but mist fogged up the breathing mask. Suddenly, she raised a hand and brushed my bangs aside, then touched my now visible eyebrows. And just like that, I broke down again. She was the one who was sick, yet I always seemed to be the one crying more. Mom and Dad asked Duncan to take care of me. He said, "I already think of her like my little sister. Of course I'll take care of her." I went home with them, head spinning, thoughts cloudy. Duncan touched my forehead. "Are you running a fever?" "There's medicine at home." Our house always had a stockpile of meds. After dinner at Jordan's place, I went home. Jordan came with me. We did our homework together, and he reminded me to take my medicine and go to sleep. The medicine hit quickly. I got drowsy fast. That night, I slept deeply. My dreams kept shifting. Valeria, Mom and Dad, and tomorrow's competition all flickered in and out. I woke up even before the alarm rang. I put on the outfit Mom had specially prepared for the competition. The teacher had told me the entire event would be recorded, so I could show it to my parents afterward. But now, they probably didn't have the heart to watch it. Jordan was waiting at my front door, reminding me to take my medicine. "Bring my umbrella." He was kind of naggy. I teased him. "You're even more naggy than my mom." His face turned red, and his voice softened. "Didn't you ask me to keep talking to you?" I nodded. "Yeah, I like it when you talk to me." I thanked him. The blush spread from his face to his neck. Even his fingertips were red. It was raining outside, and the weather was getting colder. I realized I hadn't dressed warmly enough. The wind whooshed through my clothes, and my throat started to itch. Luckily, the competition was in the morning. I could still hold back my coughs. I delivered the speech I had practiced so many times, this time, in front of my classmates and teachers. At the final bow, I felt light all over, but my mind was heavy, so heavy I nearly fainted. I didn't stay to hear the results, and I never got to see Jordan's speech. The teacher took me to the nurse's office. The school nurse took my temperature and said, "I'll write you an excuse note. Call your parents, they need to take you to the hospital." The nurse had already handed me the phone, and I lifted my hand to take it, but I hesitated. Before I could decide, someone else took it from me. Duncan, head slightly lowered, quickly dialed a number with his fingers. "I'll call my mom." My heart tightened. "There's no need to bother your mom. I can go to the hospital by myself." He raised the hand holding the phone and glanced at me. "You need someone to take care of you right now. Don't pretend to be strong." I led him to my classroom. He waited outside while I went in to pack my things. When I came out, he took my school bag without a word. We walked in silence toward the school gate. Then he spoke. "If you called your mom or dad, they'd come too. You know, you're still a kid, you don't have to act so grown up." I felt a gentle pressure on the top of my head. Duncan had reached out and ruffled my hair. "Don't overthink everything." I couldn't reply right away. I didn't even know what to say. Aunt Lynn met us at the school entrance and brought me to a nearby hospital. She rushed around, registering me, bringing me water, even laying a blanket over me while I had the 4-drip. I thanked her quietly, then leaned back in the chair and tried to sleep. My mind was groggy, my body heavy with exhaustion. I wanted to sleep, but that feeling of fatigue was too strong, like it was weighing me down from the inside, making rest impossible. Everything just hurt. In that hazy in-between state, I thought I heard my mother's voice. She was talking to Aunt Lynn. Not long after, Aunt Lynn left, and my mom sat down in the chair beside me. I opened my eyes, just to make sure she was really there. "Mom?" She nodded. Her clothes were damp. "You thirsty?" I shook my head. She sighed. Neither of you can give me a break. You and your sister. Always worrying me one after the other. The words "I'm sorry" were already on the tip of my tongue when she continued. You have to learn to take care of yourself. I can't always be there watching over you. You've always been the obedient one. Try to stay that way and worry me less. I whispered. I understand. When the 4 was finished, she took me home and helped me into bed. She tucked the blanket around me and said, "Rest for a bit. I'll wake you up later for dinner and medicine." After the 4 drip, I felt much clearer, but I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, brain empty, thinking of nothing at all. It wasn't until Mom pushed open the door, turned on the light, and told me to eat, that I realized how much time had passed. It was just the 2 of us at the dinner table. Halfway through, Mom suddenly got up in a rush and began packing food into containers. "I'm going to take this to your dad and Valeria. Your dad will be back home tomorrow. Don't be scared being here alone, okay?" After she left, I didn't finish the rest of my meal. I packed up what was left, put it in the fridge, turned off the lights, and got back into bed. Then I whispered quietly to myself, "Better not get sick again. It's too much trouble." Chapter 7. Jordan brought me back a certificate for the Excellence Award. He said the judges gave me glowing feedback, said a lot of encouraging things, and asked how I was doing. He told me he'd wanted to take me to the nurse's office that day, but the teacher had stopped him. I asked him, "Do you play basketball?" He blinked, a little confused, then nodded. I looked at him seriously and asked, "Jordan, will you teach me how to play basketball? If I train and get stronger, I won't get sick so easily anymore." Being sick was exhausting. Valeria had been ill for so many years. She must be so tired. He didn't hesitate at all. "Sure," he said. Immediately, I looked at him, and his ears quietly turned red. He had never turned down a single request of mine, and he never missed a single thing I said. "Jordan, thank you." The words I said to him most often were probably, "Thank you." After Valeria was discharged from the hospital, her condition was much weaker than before. Dad didn't want her walking to and from school with us anymore. He wanted to drive us himself. I cut in and said, "I want to play basketball with Jordan after school, right away." My parents looked anxiously at Valeria. Her face was still very pale, but instead of looking at them, she turned to me and said, "That's great. Playing basketball can help you grow taller." Though they agreed, I saw the quiet blame in their eyes. Mom pulled me aside into the kitchen and whispered, "Your sister just got out of the hospital. She can't run or jump. Why would you bring up basketball in front of her? What if she gets upset?" I looked at her and felt like something inside me went hollow. I nodded woodenly. "I won't mention it again." Mom always thought things through more carefully than I did. How could I possibly be mature, like Duncan had said? But then, for no reason, I said again to her, "Mom, I really want to play basketball." She patted my head. All right, just don't bring it up in front of your sister." Her hand brushed against my bangs. I asked her, "Mom, did you notice I cut my bangs?" She paused, her gaze shifting to my forehead. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "Yes." "Did you cut them yourself?" "Looks good." Our eyes met. I was the one who looked away first. I stared at the floor and muttered, "Yeah, I cut them myself." The kitchen suddenly felt too small. Even the air felt thin. I walked around her and stepped out. But once I reached the door, I couldn't hold it in and turned back to say, "Valeria wouldn't mind." Valeria really wanted me to do the things I wanted to do. She genuinely wished that everyone around her could live freely, doing what they loved. After we entered high school, Valeria had to take frequent leaves for health reasons. I studied even harder, so I could go to the hospital and tutor her in return. She was much smarter than me. Even when I explained some confusing theorem in a tangled mess, she could understand it instantly with just a few words. I struggled a lot with school. Luckily, I had Jordan. No matter what he was doing, whenever I went to find him, he always looked up and asked, "What's up? Need something?" He was so kind to me, but slowly, I started to feel something close to panic. I couldn't help but think, after we graduate, what if we don't end up at the same university? What if he's not by my side anymore? What if I can't handle a life without him? That kind of thinking made me develop a sort of self-defense mechanism. I told myself, start now, lower your dependency on him. That way, when you part ways later, it won't hurt so much. So I started going to him less often, from twice a day to once a day, then once every 2 days. Then one day, he came to find me. He walked into my classroom, casually pulled out the empty chair next to mine. Valeria wasn't in school lately, so that seat had been vacant. Bella, you haven't had any tough questions lately? I had been memorizing vocabulary words, but his arrival scrambled my focus. Without thinking, I replied. I asked the class rep. The class rep sat right behind me. He heard me mention his name and looked up. He saw Jordan. They knew each other and played basketball together often. Jordan said, his grades aren't as good as mine. He can't explain things as clearly as I can. The class rep rolled his eyes and looked back down. Look, he's not even studying. He's secretly playing on his phone. Jordan picked up my workbook and flipped through it. I know your weak spots better than he does. If you ask me, you'll get twice the results with half the effort. You done bragging yet? The class rep kicked Jordan's chair. Jordan swayed a little, and the two of them started bickering. I had been trying to distance myself from Jordan, but he came to me anyway, never even asked why I was pulling away. Quietly, without a word, he pulled our relationship back to the way it had always been, and I couldn't bring myself to push him away. How could I bear to reject someone who was always so kind to me? Duncan got into a top medical university. He called my parents and said he had met a professor who might be able to treat Valeria's condition. So Dad arranged for her to take a leave from school. Not long after, she was transferred to another hospital. She left on a weekend, and I went with her. I told her, you're definitely going to get better. Mom went with her to the new city to take care of her. Dad and I stayed behind, but I didn't really have anything to say to Dad. And he didn't seem to have much to say to me, either. Our only interactions were things like calling me to eat, or asking how my studies were going. As time passed, Valeria's treatment grew more and more expensive. Eventually, I stopped seeing much of Dad at home, either. In a family of 4, it started to feel like I was the only one left. Chapter 8. Before I realized it, my parents had left me in Aunt Lynn's care. I saw her more often than I saw them, and I spent more time in Jordan's room than in my own home. I didn't like being alone in an empty, dark room. It felt like I was cut off from the world, like I had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. I often felt like I was falling into a void, a space without light, without warmth, filled only with the silence of death and an all-encompassing sense of despair. Every time I woke from a nightmare, I was too scared to go back to sleep. I was terrified of falling back in. I wanted to escape, to hear sounds, to see light. I started to crave the time I spent with Jordan more and more. I clung to the daylight and sunshine. During our senior year pledge ceremony, the school even threw us a collective celebration for turning 18. They let us go hiking to reach the summit. That day, the sun was especially bright. It was so warm that I couldn't even open my eyes fully. I stood in a pavilion at the mountaintop, looking down, and for a brief moment, I felt like I was floating above it all. Jordan walked over to me, and like a magician, he suddenly had a sunflower in his hand. Happy 18th, he said. I took the flower, dazed and dreamlike, and before I knew it, the words just slipped out of my mouth. Jordan, will you always stay by my side? There were classmates nearby. They were sensitive to that kind of talk and immediately turned to look at us with excitement. Only then did I snap out of it and tried to think of something to smooth it over. But Jordan's voice had already drifted to my ear on the wind. Sure. The others started teasing us. My heart warmed. Jordan never said no to me. A few days later, it would be my sister's and my birthday. Too bad it wasn't on a weekend, so I couldn't go see her. Dad didn't make it home that day either. The neighbors were out too. I waited in the living room, not really expecting anyone to show up. Priorities change. To this family now, a birthday didn't really count for much. Then I got a video call from my sister. She was wearing a hospital gown and a birthday hat. Her room was decorated warmly. From the other end came a chorus of happy 18th birthday. My sister, Mom, Duncan, and a few people I didn't know were there. It was lively on their end. Mine felt like a cold, empty abyss. After the call, The quiet in the house became unbearable, so I climbed, step by step, to the rooftop. The night wind was strong up there, and the view stretched far. No wonder my sister loved coming up here when she was little. I navigated around the clutter, climbed up to the high platform, opened my hand into the wind, and suddenly, a warm hand gently interlaced with mine. The wind felt like it could lift me into the sky. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I answered. It was Jordan. "You're not at home? Where are you?" His voice had changed since puberty. It sounded really nice now. I said, "Your voice sounds really good." He paused. "Where are you? I'll come celebrate your birthday." I told him I was on the rooftop. Not long after, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Jordan appeared, breathless, holding a cake box. "What are you doing up here so late?" My sister liked coming here to feel the wind. I wanted to try it too. He put the box down and reached his hand out to me. "Come down. It's dangerous up there." I obeyed and jumped down from the platform into his arms, crashing into him so hard he stumbled back a few steps. He was so much taller than me that he could wrap me completely in his arms. I buried my face against his chest, and all of a sudden, the tears started pouring out as if some valve had been opened, and I just couldn't hold it back anymore. I asked him, if I had been the one to get sick from the start, would they have cared for me the same way? I didn't blame my sister. I didn't blame them either. My sister was in pain, and they had their reasons. I just couldn't figure one thing out. I just wanted to know, what could I possibly do to make them really see me? Would they ever love me the way they loved her? Why do they always forget about me? Aren't I their daughter too? Or is it because I'm not good enough? That's why they don't like me as much. It was like a lifetime's worth of hurt suddenly found a crack to escape from. In an instant, it overwhelmed me, unstoppable. Jordan held me tightly, repeating over and over, "You're enough, you're good." But I kept denying it, like I was stuck in a loop, because otherwise, how could I explain why my parents always forgot me? Then I broke down completely. I don't know how much time passed. All I could feel was Jordan's arms shaking as he held me. He kept whispering the same words. "I'll stay with you. I'll always choose you." His head rested on my shoulder as he said softly, "Bella, I was born for you." For me? I realized it wasn't him trembling, it was me. My whole body was shaking. "Yes, I'll only ever choose you." I had never heard anything like that before. I was used to being the one left behind. Used to hearing, "Be good. Be obedient. Don't cause trouble." For me. Wouldn't that be exhausting for you? You're just a little girl. You're allowed to be selfish. "Thank you." I said thank you to Jordan again, but it hurts so much. Jordan, I don't know how to feel happy anymore. Chapter 9. Jordan said I was sick. I told him I had been working out all along just to not get sick. My body was in great shape. I didn't like being ill. It only brought pain to everyone around me. I kept going to school, doing assignments, preparing for the college entrance exam. I didn't act any differently than before, but I felt so tired. I didn't want to deal with anyone. Jordan stayed by my side every second. He even took me to the hospital for tests. He got the diagnosis, bought the medication, and watched me take every dose. He was exhausted because of me, too. I told him, "Maybe you should pick someone else. I'm such a mess." There was a raw honesty in me now. Or maybe I had just given up on everything. His eyes turned red as he said, "Please don't say things like that, okay?" Why did he look even sadder than I did? Seeing him like that made my heart ache. And once again, the tears wouldn't stop. Jordan grabbed my hand and took me straight to my dad's office. He threw the diagnosis on the desk. "Uncle," he said, "is this how much you wanted Bella to be the perfect daughter? She's been so perfect she ended up like this. Are you satisfied now?" His own tears slipped out, though he wiped them away quickly. Only his reddened eyes betrayed him, glaring at my father with something close to fury. My dad looked at the diagnosis as if he couldn't read, as if he didn't even recognize me. When he finished reading it, he looked up at me and muttered, "Bella." I forced a smile and said softly, "It's okay. The doctor said I'll get better with medicine." My dad's lips started trembling. Then, out of nowhere, he raised his hand and slapped himself. The sound was sharp and loud. I froze. Too late to stop him. He raised his hand again. I quickly grabbed it. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. One side of his face was red, and his eyes were brimming with tears. His other hand kept hitting the desk beside him. It took a long time before he could even get out a broken sob. But somehow, I felt nothing for him. I looked at him cry, numb and hollowed out. Then, all at once, something hit me, something real and heavy. I looked at Jordan and realized, he was right. I really was sick. Otherwise, how could I not feel anything seeing my dad like this? My dad gripped my hand, trying to calm down, but he couldn't. Bella, I'm sorry. I've wronged you. I've been regretting it ever since the time I hit you. You've been scared of me ever since, and I didn't even know how to talk to you anymore. My mind buzzed. So I wasn't the only one who remembered that slap. If I were being my usual self, this would be the moment I'd tell him, Dad, I forgot all about that. I'd use the word forget to cover a lot of things. Maybe I could use it again this time. That sentence kept turning over and over in my head, but I just couldn't say it out loud. That slap had haunted me for years. It became a recurring nightmare. Every morning after dreaming of it, I was afraid of seeing my dad. He kept apologizing. I just sat there in silence and listened. Once he had calmed down a bit, I said, I haven't told Mom yet. Dad froze for a moment. I continued, don't tell them yet. My sister's in a critical stage right now. In a while, you can take some time off. We can go visit her. I hadn't seen my sister in a long time. I missed her a lot. I turned and looked at Jordan. Come with us, okay? Jordan never says no to me. We went to see my sister. She was doing really well, just one last surgery left, and she'd be able to go home. When she saw me, she pinched my cheek. Why are you so thin? Studying too hard? I smiled and shook my head. Not really. Jordan's been helping me study. I think I did pretty well. Mom said to her, you're almost there. Soon you'll be able to return to school. My sister smiled, and Mom pulled me slightly aside, lowering her voice. She's in a really sensitive stage right now. Be mindful of what you say. Try to keep her happy. I looked at Mom and gave a quiet okay. She gave me a strange look, something odd, a little distant, unfamiliar. I was about to walk away when suddenly she grabbed my arm again and asked hesitantly, Bella, is there anything going on with you lately? Why would you think that? She pressed a hand to her chest, furrowed her brow, and shook her head. It's just, something in my heart feels off. Maybe you're just tired from taking care of my sister. You haven't had enough rest. I pulled my arm back gently. Why don't you take a break? I'll stay here and help. She nodded. I sat by my sister's bedside, peeling an apple for her, rambling about school, how part of the campus was being renovated, how she'd get to see it when she came back. She was even studying while in the hospital. I was sure she'd still make it to the top of her class. Then she suddenly asked, Bella, why aren't you happy? The knife paused in my hand, and the apple peel broke. I looked at her with a smile. Once you're better, I'll be happy, more than anyone. I wanted her to be healthy. Her eyes were soft when she looked at me. There was affection in them, but also pity. I quickly looked away and focused back on peeling the apple. Before, I wanted her to be healthy because I hoped that with 2 healthy daughters, our parents might finally treat us equally. But now, that craving for love had quieted down. Now, I just wanted her to be well, simply because I wanted her to be okay. Chapter 10. My sister had just finished her final surgery. She hadn't woken up yet when Jordan and I crossed the street to buy her some flowers from the shop opposite the hospital. She loved lilies. While I waited for the florist to wrap the bouquet, I turned and found myself face to face with a sunflower, its face nearly brushing mine. Jordan placed it gently into my hands. I looked at him and smiled, lips pressed together. I remembered his words, I was born for you. I whispered to him, Jordan, thank you. He said, it's my pleasure. If he hadn't been in my life, I probably would have stayed hidden in some corner, curling into myself, invisible to the world. My vision swayed, and Jordan's outline grew blurry. I blinked and realized it wasn't my eyes, it was the sunlight behind him. It was too bright. We returned to the hospital, and both my parents were standing in the hallway. They looked at me at the same time. I stopped walking. My dad looked away and lowered his head. My mom came over and held the hand that was holding the flowers. Her eyes blinked rapidly, and she looked at me helplessly. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't know. She started crying right in front of me. But I felt nothing, not even a ripple inside. I didn't want to trouble you. Isn't that what you like about me? That I'm the good, obedient one? There were softer ways I could have comforted her. Like, it's not that serious. I'll be fine with medication. Or, it's not your fault, I've just been stressed from studying. But I chose the one that would make them feel guilty. Was I trying to guilt them into realizing they should treat me better? No. I don't think that was the point. I just wanted them to feel guilty. That was the truth. I wanted them to regret. Regret leaving me alone all those years. Regret shoving me into the shadows of their lives. Regret forgetting I existed. Mom's shoulders slumped. Her forehead rested on mine as she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Bella, I promise, we'll get you the best care. I asked her, Mom, is it only because I got sick that you realized how much you love me? She couldn't answer. She just shook her head over and over. Do you and Dad regret it? Regret ignoring me all the time? I'm not invisible, so why did you keep acting like I was? Or is it that my very existence has always just been a burden to you? She said, Bella, I'm sorry. Something inside me loosened. I let out a breath. I don't think I want to forgive you yet. This was my most selfish moment. No more understanding. No more making excuses for them. Just me, finally saying how I felt. To me, you and Dad haven't been good parents. I couldn't even feel her sadness. Calm and stubborn, I said, I hope I have different parents in my next life. It was like the scene around me shattered, like a mirror breaking. The hospital started to collapse. The world broke apart. The sky turned into a blinding white hole. But Dad still stood there, looking at me with guilt. Mom still leaned on my shoulder, crying. I watched them both turn into fragments, fading away piece by piece. Everything turned white, except the sunflower in my hand. It still held vibrant color. That was my obsession. Suddenly, I felt as if I had just awakened from a long dream. My obsession had never been about being pitted. It had always been about love, a love that was full and undivided. It was about hearing my parents truly say they were sorry. I turned around. Jordan was standing behind me, slowly blurring into light. He tilted his head and smiled. He mouthed the words, "Goodbye." He dissolved into points of light, disappearing. In his place stood the God I had first met. Everything came back to me. I looked at him and said, "Thank you." The God lowered his gaze. In the next life, your wish will come true. That was enough. In the next life, someone will love me, completely, and without condition. Extra chapter, the side character in White Birch. Sometimes, Bella wondered if she had been adopted. She once asked her mom that question, and got scolded in return. But if she wasn't adopted, she really couldn't understand why her parents always seemed to forget about her. The moment her sister so much as stirred, Bella would instantly become invisible. A perfect example. She was standing a bit off to the side at the school gate when she saw her dad pick up her sister's backpack and take her hand to walk her home. It was her sister who looked back and said, "Dad, where's my little sister?" Only then did her dad glance around, spot Bella, wave at her, and joke, "Can't bear to say goodbye to the teacher? Why didn't you catch up?" Bella slowly waved goodbye to the teacher, quietly refuting her dad in her mind. "That's not it. I wanted you to take my hand, too." She walked on the other side of her dad. That big hand was carrying the backpack. There was no hand left for her. So she thought, maybe it's because I didn't get a little red star sticker today. That's why Dad doesn't want to hold my hand. To make her parents like her. Bella worked hard to be the kind of kid who didn't give them trouble, so they could save their time and energy for her sick sister. Then maybe she'd be rewarded with a rare sentence. "Bella is such a good girl. Mommy's going to make your favorite food tonight." She kept chasing those rare words of praise. She studied hard, too, but no matter how hard she tried, her brain just didn't seem to get it. Her sister was smart and quick-witted. Bella, on the other hand, was slow and clumsy. That contrast only made her sister seem even more precious. She had overheard adults whispering before, "Valeria's so smart, if only her body were healthier." Poor couple. Really. And Bella, well, she's dull. And she thought, maybe some people actually wished it had been her who was sick instead. Sometimes, Bella thought the same. If I were the one who got sick, maybe mom and dad would actually take care of me properly. And it was true, when she did get sick. Her mom took good care of her. But even then, her mom would say, I was hoping you'd help take care of your sister too. Look at you. That made Bella feel deeply guilty. Mom was already so tired from taking care of Valeria. If Bella caused any more problems, she'd just be adding to her burden. So she became an obedient child, not too smart, but always listening, always watching over her sister. Over time, she grew quieter and quieter, and her parents spoke less and less about her to others. After all, what was there to say? She wasn't clever, wasn't lively, just plain and forgettable. She envied her sister. Sometimes, she even resented her. But her sister was always so good to her, always thought of her first. That only made Bella feel more guilty. It was like she was trapped in a frozen world, one that only contained her, and no one else could see her. Until one day in middle school, a new family moved in next door. And in that family, there was an older boy. His name was Duncan. His parents had taken one part of each of their names to create his. Bella thought, his parents must love him a lot. Duncan was smart, just like her sister. He helped her with her homework, patted her on the head, and gently said, Little one, you don't have to be this mature. But Bella didn't dare. She was afraid that if she wasn't mature, her parents would stop liking her. Still, she loved Duncan's kindness. She loved being near him. It felt like curling up beside a fire in the middle of winter. She could tell Duncan liked her sister more. There was softness in his eyes when he looked at Valeria. His voice was even gentler when he spoke to her. He once told Bella that he wanted to study medicine, to find a way to cure her sister. Even so, timid and uncertain as she was, Bella still confessed her feelings to him. She confessed her feelings to Duncan on the day he received his college acceptance letter. As expected, she was rejected. And so, she crawled back into her shell again. This time, she didn't want to come out. Her mom and sister went to another city for treatment. She stayed home with her dad. They barely saw each other, barely spoke. Sometimes, when she sat alone in her room, she felt cold. The empty room felt like a giant beast with its mouth wide open, ready to swallow her whole into the abyss. On her 18th birthday, she spent the whole night alone on the rooftop, staring at the moon. No one came looking for her. Only the wind remembered she existed. Bella's memory started to get worse. She kept up appearances, acted normal, but she couldn't sleep at night. Sometimes, she felt so distant from herself that she could hardly tell she was still there. She wondered if disappearing would even matter. Her parents had her sister, and that was enough. She barely managed to get into college. There, she floated on the edges of crowds, more drawn to solitude, with no desire to talk to anyone, until one day, her roommate saw the scars on her arm and took her to a doctor. That was when she found out she'd been sick for a long time. She stared at the diagnosis for ages before throwing the slip into the trash. She didn't tell anyone, because being sick was such a bother. It would just cause more trouble for her family. Her sister had gotten into Duncan's university. The two of them were the school's golden couple, admired, envied, and blessed by everyone. Her parents finally didn't have to work so hard. Why should she ruin that picture-perfect scene? On graduation day, her parents, her sister, and Duncan all came to the station to pick her up. Her dad carried her luggage. Duncan's car was parked across the road. Her sister pulled her across the street, excitement lighting up her face like a bird returning home. And Bella thought, maybe they still care about me. Everyone seemed so happy. She was smiling too, but deep down, she was exhausted. Her body felt like dead weight. Carrying it felt like shouldering a mountain. When danger struck, she pushed her sister away without thinking. The instinct to protect her sister had long been etched into her bones. She didn't regret it. The god told her this was her fate as the supporting character. She had fulfilled it well. Now, he could grant her a wish. Bella thought for a long time. Her mind was slow, her thoughts sluggish. She didn't even know what she really wanted. She thought about her sister, her parents. There was a knot in her chest she couldn't untangle, and she didn't even know where it came from. After a while, she said, If you can, please help me understand what it feels like to be loved, truly, completely. She wanted someone like that. Someone who would think about her all the time, bring her flowers, and choose her without hesitation. If there's another life, she hoped to be the main character, the one who is loved, and the god said, "You will get what you wish for." Extra, Jordan. At first, Jordan felt like he didn't quite belong in this world. It was as if someone was missing from it. He couldn't explain why, but he just felt it. Then he moved to a new place, and met a quiet, introverted girl with barely any presence, and his heart settled. It was in that moment he finally felt like he belonged. Every time he got close to Bella, his heart would pound uncontrollably. He wanted to get closer to her, but Bella always kept her head down, hardly ever spoke. The rare moments he caught her looking at him, it took everything in him to open his mouth and speak, and once he started, he couldn't stop. He just wanted to keep talking to her. But he was going through puberty. His voice hadn't settled yet. It sounded awkward. And when he saw Bella smile at the sound of it, he thought she was laughing at how bad it was. He wasn't mad at her, just frustrated with his stupid voice. So, to avoid annoying Bella, he tried to stay quiet. Instead, he watched her from a distance, helping her silently, caring for her quietly. God knew how happy he was the day Bella told him she wanted him to keep talking to her. But she was so easily frightened. At the slightest sign of discomfort, she would retreat into herself, like a snail shrinking back into its shell. Jordan understood what her home life was like. He knew the things she was going through, but he was just an outsider. All he could do was treat her as well as he possibly could. And then even better. He had always thought of himself as a cold person, stoic, aloof. He never expected he had it in him to care for someone this tenderly. Like some overprotective mom, every time he saw Bella, thoughts would swirl in his head, and he'd tell her, bit by bit. Thankfully, she never minded how chatty he got. Sometimes, Jordan felt helpless, because what he could give was so little. What Bella really wanted was the love of her parents, and he couldn't control that. He couldn't make people love her. All he could do was be there, take one step closer whenever she pulled back. He wanted nothing more than to pull her out of the dark. Teenagers don't always understand complicated emotions. But he knew that what he felt for Bella was the purest form of affection and heartache. He hurt for her, for how hard she tried. Bella studied so diligently, or rather, she put effort into everything, quietly, and all the while, her eyes grew dimmer with each passing day. She bottled everything inside and still remained gentle on the outside. He just wanted Bella to be happy. During the school's 18th birthday celebration, he gave her a flower for the first time. He had seen sunflowers blooming in a field while hiking up the mountain. He found a farmer nearby and bought one, even though he got ripped off. It was worth every cent, because Bella responded, just like the first time she asked him something softly. "Jordan, will you always stay by my side?" How could he not? He ordered her a cake for her birthday, but the shop messed up. By the time he picked it up, it was already late. He sprinted all the way back, shielding the cake like it was the most fragile thing in the world, frantically pressing her doorbell, because he knew Bella hated being alone, and on her 18th birthday, if she were left all by herself, she would definitely be sad. But no one was home. He called her, and when he saw her sitting on the rooftop, his heart leapt to his throat, his legs went weak, and instinctively, he opened his arms. That was their first hug, but it didn't feel anything like what Jordan had imagined. He held her in his arms. She was crying, trembling all over. She was finally willing to say everything she had been holding in, but she also broke down. Jordan felt like someone had punched him straight in the heart. How had he only now realized how far Bella had fallen into sadness? His eyes stung. He nearly cried too. He didn't know how to comfort her. It felt like there was nothing left inside Bella, just a hollow space being filled with cold wind. All he could do was hold her tighter, but it felt like even his warmth couldn't reach her anymore. So, helplessly, he said the one thing he had always wanted to say. "Bella, I was born for you." He had wanted the words to lift her up, but all she thought was, wouldn't that be exhausting? How could it be? To Jordan, making Bella smile was the one thing he was most proud of in his entire life. But he was terrified. After that night, even though Bella seemed okay again on the surface, He had the constant fear she would slip away at any moment. He wanted to take her to see a therapist. She didn't object. She seemed indifferent to everything, like she had given up. That was when his regret peaked. When Bella had told him, "You should find someone else." He should have done more, should have fought harder, should have told her parents, long ago, just how terribly they were failing her. Now, going to them felt pointless. He could see it in Bella's eyes. She no longer cared about her parents at all. Jordan was scared, truly scared that something might happen to her. He never wanted to leave her side. Bella never made him feel tired. If anything, she was the one who kept comforting him, and it only made his heart ache more, deeper. Every day, after Valeria's final surgery, Bella went to buy flowers. She was calm while picking them. Soft light fell across her shoulders. She looked like she could dissolve into the light at any second. Then he saw the sunflowers again. He handed one to her. She thanked him again, but in truth, Jordan didn't want to hear her say thank you. What he wanted was for Bella to be a little spoiled. To stomp her foot and pout. To say, "Buy me flowers." And then, after he did, she'd take the bouquet in one hand, his hand in the other, and skip happily down the street. He had watched Bella's parents apologize. He had seen their regret. He had watched Bella speak her truth, and watched her world fall apart because of it. He felt like he was starting to disappear, too, but he had no regrets, because Bella was standing there, whole, calm, at peace. The lilies were gone, but the sunflower still blazed bright. Jordan knew Bella could finally leave the world that had hurt her, and he knew he would see her again. He had never told Bella what sunflowers meant, that their language was, "In my eyes, there's no room for anyone else. No matter where I look, it's always you." He would always choose Bella. Story 2. On my 50th birthday, I bought myself a cup of coffee. Luis scoffed. "At your age, still trying to act like others." It was then I remembered Luis's first love. Eva had always loved coffee. Drinking coffee. I suddenly became a pathetic imitator. I was stunned for a moment. "I've already forgotten about her." "Hard to believe you still remember." Luis's face darkened, and he stormed out, slamming the door. What's wrong with him again? How ridiculous, I thought. Then my son called. "Mom, could you please stop causing trouble at Auntie's store? It's really embarrassing." My daughter called too, but her tone was a bit hesitant. "Mom, there's really nothing between Dad and Auntie. He just goes there when he's feeling down." It was at that moment I realized, for the past 20 years, my husband and his first love had never really been apart. Chapter 1. In the evening, as the house dimmed with the setting sun, I sifted through old things in the twilight. Among the mementos, I found a pile of coffee receipts tucked inside an album. The dates on the receipts spanned over 20 years, with prices increasing from a few bucks to tens of dollars now. I tried to recall what I was doing 20 years ago. Back then, my eldest was 5, and the youngest was 2. I was living through the chaos of diapers and messes, unable to work, consumed by household chores. The eldest was in preschool, constantly getting sick, while the youngest was curious about everything. I was overwhelmed, hoping Luis would come home early to help me out. At the time, Luis worked for a magazine. He would come home, exhausted, collapsing on the couch to rest his eyes. I always thought he was working late, but now I see he was just used to going to Missy's shop for a cup of coffee, sorting out his thoughts before coming home to drink the tasteless herbal tea I made. Tea, light and bland. Coffee, rich and intense. Real life is a steady stream, simple and monotonous, while the solace for the soul floats in the rich aroma of coffee, ever-changing and dreamlike. I closed the album, suddenly feeling tired. Perhaps it's for the best to break a camel's back. You need the final straw. Now, that straw has finally landed on me. Chapter 2. The door creaked. They were back. 3 people stood in the doorway, each with an unusually odd expression. My daughter, probably thinking she hadn't said anything too harsh to me, quickly changed her shoes. Noticing the dining table was empty, she rushed over to the fridge, opened the door, and exaggeratedly asked, "Mom, Why did you buy so many good things today? Are you planning a big meal? What are you going to cook? I had originally planned to, but now, I no longer felt like it. I don't want to cook. You guys can eat out. Luis's face darkened. Suddenly, my son Mario exploded in anger. Mom, will you ever stop? Dad just went for a coffee. Why are you so petty? Can't Dad have a single female friend in his life? Does every interaction with a woman mean he's cheating? Your mind is so dirty. I've had enough. Dad's been stuck in this house his whole life. And you're still not satisfied. I'm not eating. Do whatever you want. He slammed the door as he left. Not even Luis calling after him stopped him. I was stunned. I had seen long ago that my son sympathized with his father. But what I couldn't understand was, where did this deep hatred for me come from? Luis looked a bit guilty and embarrassed. He turned to our daughter Ava and said gently, "You should go too. Your mom and I need to talk." Obediently, my daughter left. In the spotless living room, it was just him and me. This morning, I had been in a great mood. After tidying up the house, I went grocery shopping, and on my way back, the cafe had just opened and was offering half price for the first cup of coffee. I decided to buy one, intending to savor it slowly at home, comparing it with the taste of the coffee I remembered from before. Then, he casually chuckled and said, "At your age, you're still trying to act trendy?" That moment, I felt heartbroken. Not long after we got married, Eva came over under the pretense of offering congratulations. She bragged about the origin, variety, and stories behind coffee, and how it should be brewed properly. After she finished speaking, I threw up. Eva's face turned ashen. Luis, on the other hand, was thrilled. "Fiona, you're pregnant." After Eva left, Luis knelt in front of me, at a loss for words. I said, "You told me she was just a regular classmate." Luis's face was serious. I never expected her to act like that. In my heart, she really is just a regular classmate. "Fiona, I swore to you before. I only started dating after making sure my heart was completely clear. I'd never lie to you. Now that we're having a child, we'll live well from now on, and no one can tear this family apart." Back then, Luis had an air of youthful innocence, his eyes clear and bright. Later, our family of 3 became a family of 4. He worked, and I quit my job to take care of the kids. By the time both kids were in elementary school, I was already a stay-at-home mom struggling to find a job. I had no choice but to take a back-office position at a library. After several years, I went from a temporary worker to a full-time employee, moving up from a janitor to a librarian. And now, I've finally retired. Today was supposed to be a happy day, my retirement day. I wanted to share the joy with them, to celebrate together. But it seems now, there's no point. Chapter 03. Luis always held himself in a rigid posture. He sat upright on the sofa, his elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped together, head bowed as if unsure of how to begin. Suddenly, I lost the desire to listen. I stood up, intending to gather my things. It was only then that he spoke. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to bring her up again. It's been so many years. She's been gone from our lives for so long." The way you said it, it's like you're accusing me of not being able to forget her. I interrupted him. "Our son called me today." He called Eva, Auntie he, and told me not to go to her shop to make a scene. Luis's expression changed. "Don't listen to him. He's just a kid, talking nonsense." I sneered inwardly. It was pathetic. Feeling both sad and disappointed for Mario, I added, "Our daughter mentioned that when you're in a bad mood, you go visit her." Luis looked embarrassed. "Only occasionally." Rage surged up from deep inside me. I grabbed an album from the shelf and threw it in front of him. "Out of 365 days, you're in a bad mood for 360 of them." Receipts from coffee shops spilled out of the album, scattering everywhere. Luis, hands trembling, hurried to pick up the album and frantically gathered the receipts from the floor. As he did so, his frustration mounted, and he slammed his hand down on the table with a fierce force. "Fiona, you're being unreasonable. What's wrong with you now? What's the problem with me having coffee? Can't I drink coffee? Am I not allowed to have coffee? With so many people in a cafe, Out in the open. What could I possibly do? I don't smoke. I don't drink. I come home on time. And I can't even have a coffee? Our son says you have a filthy mind. And he's right. Your thoughts are full of dirt. You're far from clean. As expected of a well-educated man, even his excuses are well-dressed. It was clear he'd been meeting with his first love regularly. But now that I'd found out, it was me who had the dirty thoughts. They were the shining moon over the mountains, pure and innocent, perfectly reflected. It was me who was vulgar, my vision tainted, unable to appreciate their refined beauty. This was all my fault, or was it? Just because his body didn't stray doesn't mean he wasn't cheating. Emotional betrayal is just as much a betrayal. It's more hidden, more insidious, harder to articulate. As if you've been wronged but can't point to any physical harm. It's difficult to refute. But it disgusted me. Deeply. Luis wasn't just glancing at some random beautiful woman on the street. I could have understood that. As it's natural for people to admire beauty. No. He had been staring at this woman. Time and time again. For over 20 years. If that's the case, why didn't they end up together in the first place? Why did he have to drag me into this mess? I swallowed the bitterness rising inside me and said coldly, "You're right. You don't deserve to drink coffee." When our son was short $20 for his school materials and I had to borrow money in a panic. You were showing off at Eva's place. When I rushed my daughter to the ER and couldn't pay the medical fees. You were leisurely sipping coffee and reminiscing with your first love. I tried to save money. Couldn't even afford new clothes. While you spent your days in romance. Luis. You have no right to shout at me. The reason you're so upset now, is it because I caught you lying? Or because you couldn't shift the blame onto me? You and Eva. If you're really so innocent, why don't you shout about it in front of your colleagues? You're being absurd. Luis's face turned red, trembling, unable to utter another word. For someone who loved lecturing others, he must have been very guilty to be left speechless. I had finally given up, and said coldly, "Let's get a divorce." "Fine. Let's get a divorce." Luis's voice rang out loud and clear. Chapter 4. However, when the printed divorce agreement was placed in front of him, he hesitated again. His hand trembled as he picked up the pen, but he still couldn't bring himself to sign. 3 days had passed since our last argument, and I had calmed down. I spoke calmly. "Take a good look. Everything is split equally. The house was bought together. Even though you earned more than me, I took care of the household. If you calculate it at market value, it's not much less than what you contributed. You've worked on women's issues in magazines, and you've spoken out against the unfairness of unpaid domestic work for women. I think you should understand." His voice softened, tinged with confusion. "Fiona, you've read my articles?" A flicker of annoyance rose in me. "I used to." He looked deeply moved. I continued, "But after you asked me if I could even understand them, I started reading your rival's magazine instead." He closed his mouth, and a hint of regret crossed his face. After stepping out of the role of a housewife, I started looking for a job. It took about 3 months, but nothing suitable came up. Around that time, I began to sense that he was starting to look down on me. It wasn't blatant ridicule, but hidden in the small details of daily life, an offhand remark, a dismissive gesture, or an occasional condescending glance. These subtle signs made it clear to me that I had fallen out of his favor. Every year on International Women's Day, his magazine would run a feature on women, filled with glowing words and praise, making me believe he truly respected working women. But now I realize, he only respected the idealized version in his mind, the woman who could work tirelessly at the hardest jobs and still shine brightly, full of life and energy. Not someone like me, worn out after a long day, desperate for some peace and quiet. Just like the majority of ordinary people, he turned his head away, clearly uncomfortable. "Fiona, do we really have to go through with this?" "Yes." I didn't want to say much more and began packing my things. After more than 20 years in this home, there was so much stuff. If we were really getting divorced, I needed to declutter. I organized what I was going to take, sold what could be sold, threw away what could be discarded, and gave away what could be donated. Luis hovered around me, circling nervously. "Where will you live after the divorce?" Don't trouble yourself over it. You're 50 years old, and you're not young either. Fiona, do we really have to end it over Eva? He was getting anxious. I put down the clothes in my hands, crossed my arms, and looked at him. Is it really just about Eva? The straw that breaks the camel's back isn't the last one. It's all of them combined. Chapter 5. How easily hearts change, yet we lament the ease with which they do. I used to love reading that phrase. Later, during my long, over 20-year marriage with Luis, I came to understand one thing: people are constantly changing, and it's impossible to truly see through someone at a glance, just as no one can predict their entire life in a single moment. Even if they return to what they believe was a turning point, destiny will always have its own path. In the 5th year of our marriage, Luis had already grown resentful of life, and his words toward me became laced with hostility. He would say things like, "If it weren't for my fear of you overthinking, I wouldn't have turned down the promotion. There are no women at this conference. Stop being so paranoid, and don't come by the office unexpectedly. It wouldn't look good if people saw you." In truth, I had only visited his office once to bring him some documents, but he was so annoyed, as if I had embarrassed him. After years of raising kids, I had lost my polished appearance, and I no longer had a stable, respectable job. I was just an unemployed housewife who had to ask for money to barely make ends meet, struggling to find a job. Now, I vaguely feel that perhaps he was afraid I'd find out about him and Eva, afraid that I'd cause a scene at his workplace. So, he preemptively planted the idea in my head, making sure I lacked the confidence or courage to confront him at his office. After all, his colleagues were intellectuals, while I was just a high school-educated housewife. I spoke coldly. "You never respected me from the start, did you? You looked down on me for my lack of education, because I wasn't as cultured as you. But at that time, you needed someone to take care of your mother, and I just happened to be the kind, capable woman you were looking for. So, you started a relationship with me." Luis grew angry. "Don't paint me as that disgusting. I wish I had thought of you as disgusting from the beginning. You're being unreasonable. Your education level is high school. Why can't I mention that?" His words took my breath away. Yes, I admit it. I only have a high school education. Anyone can say that, and I will acknowledge it. But what I can't tolerate is the disdain in your voice when you bring it up. Luis, if I had been born a man, if my family hadn't valued sons over daughters, my education wouldn't have been worse than yours. You got a good education because you benefited from patriarchy, not because you're better than me. And it's certainly not a reason to look down on me. If you, as a respected editor-in-chief, can't grasp that distinction, then no wonder your magazine got swallowed up. His face turned ashen, his lips trembled, and for a long moment, he couldn't say a word. In a fit of spite, he grabbed the pen and hastily scrawled his name on the divorce agreement. "This marriage is over. We have to divorce. 9 o'clock tomorrow at the Civil Affairs Bureau." I took the divorce papers, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door. Silent tears began to stream down my face. Falling in love is made up of countless beautiful moments, but marriage is about the daily erosion of those moments. The more beauty you've accumulated in the beginning, the longer the marriage will last. Unfortunately, the beauty Luis and I had saved up was only enough to make us tolerate each other for 5 years. After that, each day was just a dust-covered grind in the routine of life. We both sought an escape from the stagnant waters of our marriage. He found his way out through Eva's cafe. I had no family to return to, no close friends to rely on. My only option was to stay in the fortress of this marriage and learn to hold my breath. And after holding my breath for so long, I eventually transformed, no longer easily swayed, and learning to see things clearly, like the Monkey King, who had to endure the flames of the furnace to finally gain his piercing gaze. They say at 40, one is free from doubt, and at 50, one understands their destiny. On my 50th birthday, I had thought about letting go. Most of my life had passed. It was time to reconcile with the angry, unsatisfied version of myself. After all, retirement is a new chapter, a time to comfort the self that had worked so hard. But Luis struck me with a harsh reality. Fate has its own plans. Perhaps, on my 50th birthday, my fate was to divorce. Chapter 6. The noise from moving was not small. I had planned to finish quickly, but there were too many things to pack. It took an entire day, and by the time the movers arrived, it was already evening. Luis had hidden away. He couldn't face telling the neighbors that we were getting divorced. The kids had both returned from work. Mario glanced at the mess on the floor, took a deep breath, rolled his eyes, and then kicked one of the boxes I had packed. Mom, have you watched too many videos online? Have they messed up your brain? Divorcing at your age, aren't you ashamed? How do you expect me to find someone? To get married? What kind of mother does this? The box was filled with miscellaneous items. Memories from when the kids were young. Things I couldn't bear to throw away. Carefully selected to take with me. But now, I slowly stood up and slapped him hard across the face. Then, I rummaged through the clutter and found a diary, which I angrily threw at him. You said your dad was trapped by me all his life, didn't you? Well, now he's free. He's not trapped anymore. So why aren't you happy? What are you holding on to? When I'm at home, you say I'm suffocating your father. When I'm leaving, you say I'm irresponsible. You get to say whatever you want. What kind of person are you? And who taught you to speak to your mother like this? You, just like your father, are selfish. Don't even think about getting married in this life. You'll just ruin some good girl's life. Mario glared at me, filled with rage, but when he realized the diary I had thrown at his face, his expression turned guilty. Still, he bit his lip and said nothing in defense. The diary was filled with his hatred toward me. He hated me for trapping his father all his life. He witnessed his father's unfulfilled desires and couldn't bear to see his father married to what he considered a mediocre woman. He wanted to be like his father, sipping a cup of coffee, reading a book, sitting in a cafe, quietly and elegantly, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the world outside. His father was peaceful, refined, like an old song, occasionally glancing up at the unattainable cafe owner he loved. He envied Eva, the glamorous cafe owner. He admired how she could chat and laugh with people, her sophistication, and how she was respected by everyone. Unlike me, his mother, who was just a simple worker at a library, moving from one task to the next, wearing dull work clothes, wiping down bookshelves, carrying stacks of books. I always smiled at people, serving others, dealing with ordinary folks instead of people from higher social classes. When I first read this diary, it pierced my heart. I thought to myself, he's truly Luis's son, with quite the talent for writing. If I weren't the villain in his story, I might even praise him. I coldly said, "Move aside." Mario's eyes reddened. He clenched his teeth and stepped aside. Eva tried to stop me, tears welling up in her eyes. "Mom, do you really have to leave?" "Dad, he really was just having coffee. He didn't do anything." I stared at her and said calmly, "Do you know that after you were born, when your dad went to register your name, he didn't write Ava, he wrote Eva, just like that woman with the last name he." Ava's face instantly turned pale, full of disbelief. I continued, "I was the one who noticed and thought it was a mistake, so I corrected it. But looking back now, I don't think it was a mistake at all. When you get married, would you want your child to bear the name of your husband's ex? Even if it's just a single letter, would you be okay with that?" At that time, I truly believed it was just a mistake. After all, people make mistakes. But now, I realize how soft-hearted and kind I was in my younger days, always unwilling to think the worst of others. If I could go back, I'd rather be the villain first, and only then be the good person. Ava's hand dropped, and she stepped back, defeated. I pulled my suitcase and walked out. Mario yelled in anger, punching the wall hard. Ava, meanwhile, started sobbing. The elevator arrived, and I stepped in, sealing away the sounds of their voices. My thoughts wandered. Perhaps there really is no such thing as a perfect marriage. Maybe that saying is true, no matter who you marry, you'll regret it. Since that's the case, I can only walk the path I've chosen as best as I can. I won't curse the heavens or blame myself. I've done my best, and that's why I've made it this far. Chapter 07. The next day, the divorce registration went smoothly. Luis cared about appearances. He could shout at me at home, but outside, he always maintained a polite and courteous demeanor. After we finished the registration, he glanced at the glaring sunlight, then lowered his head. It seemed like there was a glimmer of tears in his eyes. He spoke softly. "If you ever need help, don't hesitate to ask. After all these years living together, we should have some level of trust. I'll do my best." I nodded but said nothing, turning away and walking off. If he truly wanted to help, he wouldn't have been blind to the struggles I faced in our marriage over the past 2 decades. A man's career is just his career. A woman's career is her children, the household, prioritizing her husband, and then her own work. Society doesn't demand men to be perfect in every aspect. But the moment a woman falls short, criticism comes from all directions. If he really saw that, he would have known that even without Eva, I had already rehearsed leaving him countless times in my mind. I would collapse into sleep, wake up and heal myself, endure the busy days, and return to restless nights, over and over, for 20 years. Eva was really just the final straw that broke the camel's back. During the month-long cooling-off period, I buried myself in work, continuing the writings I hadn't finished. Without the burden of household chores for the entire family, I suddenly had so much more time to myself. Just before the month ended, I received a call from the Writers Association. They mentioned an upcoming field trip and asked if I wanted to join. I thought about it. I had stayed home long enough, and perhaps a change of scenery would help with the writing challenges I was facing. I decided to go. And there, I ran into Luis and Eva. I was momentarily stunned when I saw them. They, too, seemed a bit uneasy when they saw me. When no one was around, Luis sneakily approached me. "What are you doing here? Did you come to handle logistics?" I was momentarily speechless. In his eyes, I must have been born to serve others. Although there's no hierarchy in professions, people's hearts do have a sense of value. I replied coldly, "It's none of your business." Luis continued, "Can you please not say anything to the group? Eva and I are innocent. She's been feeling down lately, and I'm just here to accompany her. It has nothing to do with me. Don't bother me again." I walked away, feeling utterly disgusted, as if something slimy had stuck to my entire body. "We're innocent." That phrase carried a hidden attack. It implied that my eyes were dirty, which is why I couldn't see their innocence. We didn't do anything. The hidden attack was that my mind was filthy, which is why I thought such terrible things. But from my perspective, if their behavior and actions led to misunderstandings, the problem must lie with them. It's those who are impure themselves who throw mud at others. For the next few days, I treated them as if they didn't exist. But during a group photo, someone called out, "Mr. Sun, why don't you and your wife take a picture together?" Luis didn't correct them. Eva, with all the confidence in the world, grabbed his arm and smiled. "We'd be happy to." Her gaze flickered over to me, her lips curling into a triumphant smile, seemingly innocent but full of malice. She was provoking me, betting that I would still be as flustered as I was in my younger days. But she guessed wrong. I replied coldly, "Luis isn't divorced yet. Even if you're in a hurry, Miss He, at least wait until we finalize things before calling yourselves husband and wife." Chapter 8. Everyone's eyes darted back and forth between the three of us in shock. Throughout the trip, Luis had shown great care for Eva, so everyone assumed they were a married couple. No one could have imagined that I, the one who had no interaction with Luis, was actually his wife. Luis's face turned pale. He had spent his entire life guarding his reputation, but now it was utterly shattered. He glanced at me, a pleading look in his eyes. But I didn't look at him, I looked at Eva. She was dressed fashionably, exuding an air of efficiency and sharpness. But there was something about her that felt fake, as if she were someone weak trying desperately to imitate a person she could never truly be. Forcing a smile, she explained, "I was just accompanying Luis to help him clear his mind. He's been very upset about the divorce, and I was worried he might do something foolish. If anyone misunderstood, that's my fault. You don't need to be so aggressive. If there were really something between us, you wouldn't even have a place here." I didn't explain earlier because I didn't want to cause any awkwardness if people called me the wrong thing. "But since you want to take the photo, go ahead." She gave me a faint smirk, certain that I wouldn't dare to take the photo with Luis. Luis seemed to gain some courage, saying, "Fiona, Don't overthink this. There's really nothing between us. I laughed bitterly, walking up to him slowly before delivering a sharp slap across his face. Sorry. There was a fly on your face just now. You didn't see it. But I did. After all, you're blind. So it's normal that you didn't notice. My eyes work just fine. Though, I saw everything clearly. Luis clutched his face, stunned, unable to believe that I had humiliated him in public like this. I had always protected his dignity before, but now, stained dignity wasn't worth keeping. People quickly rushed to pull us apart. Ms. Zoe, please don't be angry. Calm down. Ms. Zoe, come over here. Sit down. Have some warm water and take a rest. Even the photographer rushed to apologize. Ms. Zoe, I'm sorry. It was my mistake to call the wrong name. I remained calm. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Everyone seemed to have a clear sense of right and wrong, and no one paid any attention to Luis or Eva. Eva shot me a venomous glare before turning her concern toward Luis, checking if he was okay. Luis, however, was frozen, staring blankly at me, his eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. Zoe? After over 20 years together, he had no idea that his own wife was actually a somewhat well-known freelance writer, contributing to various magazines, with sharp critiques that had made headlines and earned her interviews. He probably also realized why Zoe had refused his requests for interviews or articles. It was personal. He admired Zoe, but he looked down on me. So, of course, I would never accept his false admiration. I only let him stew in the dark, wondering why Zoe wouldn't accept his interview. Despite the incredibly high fees he offered, he always assumed that when I was on my computer, I was just playing around, and when I was on my phone, I was scrolling through silly videos. He never tried to truly understand me. He thought that the moment I became a housewife, my fate was sealed. He didn't realize that under pressure, even a stone can bloom. A few days after the field trip, Luis and Eva were nowhere to be seen. They had both left early, too ashamed to stay any longer. After the trip ended, I received a call from him. His voice was soft, fragile, as if it could shatter at any moment. Fiona, I just noticed that there are so many articles you've written on the shelves in our house. I never paid attention before. Of course he hadn't noticed me before. His life was full of color, romance, and style, perfect for social media. Something to be envied by all. My life only belonged on platforms like TikTok, in the circles of housewives, filled with the smoke and grime of daily life and complaints about marriage. Our lives never intersected. How could we possibly discover each other's hidden sides? I had once thought about revealing the truth to him, but after he scolded me for touching his books and questioned whether I could even understand them, I gave up on the idea. The result today was exactly what he deserved. Chapter 9. I calmly asked, "Is there anything else?" He said, "Fiona, I still don't want a divorce. The house has fallen apart without you these days. I don't mean that you should come back to do the chores, but the house just feels soulless without you. Mario and Ava have been fighting constantly. Without you, this family seems like it's falling apart." I ignored the regret and worry in his voice. I could picture life at home clearly. Mario, like his father, was full of machismo. He wouldn't care about the small details of home life, but he'd be meticulous about his own needs: good food, good drinks, good clothes, polished for the outside world, but a mess at home, with only a presentable face to show. If someone were to marry him, he would never see the struggles of a woman. If he couldn't see them, they didn't exist. To him, those struggles were just exaggerations, baseless accusations. As for Ava, under my protection, she never experienced favoritism towards males. She got along well with her father and brother. But to say she was my daughter would be inaccurate. She was more like the daughter I bore for Luis. She didn't agree with me. She had her own sense of superiority. She believed her future would never sink into the kind of life I had. She was convinced she'd surpass me. Subconsciously, she tried to win her father's approval, aligning herself with him, undermining me to gain his love, attention, and a larger share of the inheritance. In her mind, her father was the one with assets, and her mother was the one with none. She was pitiful, infuriating, but also the one I felt the most heartache for, because without me at the bottom of the family hierarchy, the illusion of equality and recognition she thought she had from her father and brother would soon crumble. In the past, I would have compromised for her sake. I pitied her, as I pitied myself when I was young. But ever since I found out that she knew all along about Luis's continued contact with Eva, my feelings for her cooled. Some flowers, if you protect them too much, they'll never learn. Only when they've weathered the wind and rain, and faced the harshness of life, can they bloom anew. Now, she's likely the lowest on the totem pole in that household. I can only hope she wakes up and realizes that even if she castrates herself to submit to patriarchy, she'll still be excluded from the power structure. Like me, she'll realize that behind her, she has nothing to rely on but herself. Luis was still muttering, but I hung up the phone. Before I did, I reminded him, we're finalizing the divorce tomorrow at 9 a.m. Be there on time. However, the next morning at 9 a.m., Luis didn't show. I called him, but he didn't answer. I tried video calling him, but he ignored that too. At that moment, anger surged through me. I immediately took a cab to our old home, burst through the door, and was met with a chaotic scene. The furniture was covered in dust. The flowers on the windowsill had withered and died, and a pile of clothes sat crumpled on top of the washing machine. Socks were scattered outside the dirty laundry basket, and clothes had been left hanging for days. The floor was stained with tea, footprints, and crumpled tissues. The trash bin was overflowing, but no one had bothered to empty it. Luis looked utterly worn out. His eyes were dark and sunken, his wrinkles deeper, and he stood helplessly in the middle of the room, glancing nervously between Mario and Eva, who were furiously glaring at each other. One held a rolling pin, the other a mop, and they looked ready to tear each other apart. They had started fighting. The once inseparable siblings were now completely unrecognizable. Chapter 10. When Eva saw me, she let out a sorrowful cry, "Mom," and immediately tears of grievance streamed down her face. Mario hung his head low, holding a broom as if it had burned his hands. I glanced at them briefly, not wanting to engage, and instead turned to Luis. "I've been waiting for you for over an hour. What's the meaning of this?" Luis replied, "They got into a fight. I couldn't." I cut him off coldly. "Incompetent. Fiona!" Luis was both ashamed and angry. He could probably sense by now that I no longer held him in any regard. I shot him a glare, walked up, yanked the rolling pin out of Eva's hand, and stomped on Mario's broom, snapping the handle. I questioned them coldly. "Still want to fight?" Eva's eyes were red. "It's him. Lazy like a pig. I have to do everything. I cook. And when I ask him to sweep, he can't even find the mop. And when he does find it, he just slams it around. He's just showing off his temper. You're the one making a fuss. When Mom was here, everything was fine. You do a bit of work, bossing everyone around. If you don't want to do it, then get out and live somewhere else." Mario shouted back. I slapped him hard across the face. How pathetic he was. He assumed the house was his, so he felt free to tell his sister to leave. I said coldly, "Half of this house is mine. Even after I die, you won't get my share." Mario's face turned bright red, and he spat out, "I don't need anything from you. Aunt he has plenty of houses. She has a villa. She owns a cafe. She's 1,000 times better than you. Once Dad divorces, I'll make sure Auntie moves in. You'll never set foot here again." Luis roared. "Mario, shut up!" Eva, furious, yelled, "Mario, how could you say that?" Mario ignored everyone and stormed out. Luis sighed. "Don't take it to heart. Mario can be arrogant, but deep down, he's not a bad kid." I interrupted. "It's time to get divorced. No one's stopping you now, right?" Luis's throat bobbed as if there were 1,000 things he wanted to say, but the words got stuck, and nothing came out. Finally, he uttered, "Okay." I hurried downstairs, waited for him, and then we swiftly headed to the Civil Affairs Bureau and finalized the paperwork. After receiving the divorce certificate, Luis stared blankly at the booklet in his hands, as if he couldn't believe we were really divorced. "Fiona," he muttered, his lips trembling. Take care. I didn't want to hear another word from him. Once upon a time, we had promised each other that we would never go to bed angry, that we'd resolve everything before sleeping. We swore we'd never fall asleep still upset. But over time, we forgot that promise, and after a while, we stopped arguing altogether. Because if you don't engage, there's no friction, and if there's no friction, there's no conflict, no arguments, no clashes of words, no meeting of souls. I played the dutiful wife, and he played the good father, but there was no love left between us. After the divorce, Luis and I lost all contact. Mario vanished into thin air, and only Ava called. She said Mom once, then couldn't get another word out. I didn't rush her. I set the phone aside, switched on the speakerphone, and began organizing my desk. Finally, I had a desk of my own, no longer having to avoid writing around Luis. At first, it was because I feared his ridicule. Later, I simply didn't want to have any connection with him. After a long while, I heard Ava's muffled sobs through the phone. She choked out, "Mom, I'm sorry. I finally understand you. I'm so sorry." Then she hung up. My hand paused while organizing the desk. I sat down on the couch, thinking, silly girl, from now on, you'll have to walk your own path. Mom won't be able to help you anymore. Chapter 11. My neighbor, likely out of a mix of sympathy and pity, told me about Ava. She had moved out of the house, without me, her mother, to back her up. She found herself at the bottom of the household hierarchy. The whole family expected her to do the laundry, cook, and take care of the chores. She had no complaints about taking care of Luis, but her conflicts with Mario had only escalated. She finally realized that her father was, in fact, quite lazy. He only cared about being handsome, charming, and refined, and didn't know how to do anything else. Her brother was a spitting image of their father, shiny on the outside, but hollow on the inside. His words were carefree, and he couldn't move 5 feet away from his bed. Before, with me keeping him in check, Mario didn't dare act out. Now, he does whatever he wants, treating Ava like she doesn't matter at all. Marrying a man like that would probably be a disaster. The neighbor said, Ava really is pitiful. Her brother makes her cry every day. I'm not trying to be mean, but Mario's personality has really gotten bad. He used to be such a polite young man. What happened to him? Mario had never hit rock bottom. He had a good start, came from a good family, and aside from having a mother he couldn't be proud of, his life had been smooth. Now that I'm gone, perhaps he's realizing I wasn't entirely useless as a mother. I thanked my neighbor and told her not to tell me about them anymore. Every child has their own path. Everyone has their own fate, and no one can arrange it for them. The neighbor sighed and said, well, son, I won't say more. You've worked hard all your life, and now you don't have to be anyone's beast of burden. Live your life well, just for yourself. Yes. Live my life for myself. I sent my manuscript to an editor I know well. It was a story I had been working on for over a decade. I'd revised, cut, and rewritten it so many times that I could never quite find the right ending. The divorce had left me with so many pent-up emotions. And this time, I finally wrote an ending I was happy with. The editor read it overnight and was immediately intrigued, saying it was refreshing and satisfying. The publication process was settled, and the work began. I worked with the editor on revisions, proofreading, confirming the style, and layout. Before I knew it, 3 months had passed. Luis was actually going to marry Eva. Mario sent me an invitation personally. The invitation was very formal. MS. Fiona is cordially invited to the wedding of my father, Luis, and Aunt Eva. Was he bragging that he'd finally get a new mother? I hope he'll always be proud of Eva. I don't plan on going. My time is precious now, and I don't want to waste it on anyone who isn't worth it. In my free time, I started making video edits, analyzing various literary works and interpreting the characters from a new perspective. I'd never edited videos before, and it was difficult at first, but slowly I started to get the hang of it. Before I knew it, the day of the wedding had arrived, but instead of a wedding invite, I received a call from the police. I rushed over and saw Luis with a face dark as thunder. Eva bruised and battered, an enraged Mario, and a defiant Ava, along with many unfamiliar faces. It was only after the police explained that I learned the wedding had not gone through. Two groups had crashed the event. One was the wife of Eva's old lover. The other was Ava. When Luis's mother fell ill years ago, Eva had broken up with him, using the excuse of moving away for graduate school. In reality, she didn't go to graduate school but instead began an affair with a married man. Over the years, they had broken up and gotten back together numerous times but never fully cut ties. Eventually, she seemed to have seen through it all and focused solely on extracting as much money as she could from him, acquiring a villa, luxury cars, and a cafe, transforming herself into the charming cafe owner. Her old lover would come when he wanted. And if he didn't, it didn't matter. For over 20 years, they coexisted in peace. But recently, her lover had found someone else, and his wife, after investigating, discovered Eva had been his mistress for years. Furious, she destroyed Eva's cafe. Panicked, Eva hastily sought someone to marry, trying to demonstrate that she was no longer involved with her old lover. But the wife, after 20 years of infidelity, was livid. Who could blame her? She wanted to tear Eva apart. So, when she found out Eva was getting married, she immediately showed up to ruin it. As for Ava, she was there purely to vent her anger. She took the microphone and, from the stage, denounced Eva for stringing Luis along for more than 2 decades. I used to be foolish, letting you bully my mom, but now, let me tell you, as long as I'm around, you'll never set foot in our house. I glanced at Ava. She smiled at me, but tears involuntarily streamed down her face. Then, she collapsed onto the table, sobbing. I sighed softly. The cost of growing up was too heavy. Perhaps no one grows without pain. I envied those who could mature without facing storms, but I knew that must be a rare miracle. To live innocently, purely, like a fairy in this world. There must be countless people holding up umbrellas, standing on tiptoes to shield that person from the wind and rain. But families like ours didn't have that luxury. Our growth would inevitably come with scars and self-healing. I had them. Ava would, too. As I was finishing the paperwork, a heavy-set man hurried in. He carried himself with an air of importance, clearly someone of wealth or power. He glanced at Eva, then quickly turned to plead with his wife. She's getting married. I told you she doesn't matter anymore. Why did you come here? Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. If you want to sue, let's go to court. But why get yourself thrown in jail? His wife slapped him hard across the face. What do you take me for? You brought a mistress and now a 4th woman into my life. I'm divorcing you, and I want everything you have. I won't let her go, and I won't let you go either. The man continued to beg, flattering her and making promises. The scene left Luis and Mario stunned, but the most shocked was Eva. She stared in disbelief, then angrily shouted, "Are you even human? I've been with you for over 20 years. But the man ignored her, proceeding to handle the legal paperwork. As he signed next to me, his hand trembled. Out of curiosity and with the intention of gathering material, I voiced my question. Eva's been with you for 20 years. And you don't feel bad for her? She stayed with you all this time, without status, and now you're trying to get the property back?" Chapter 12. The man looked surprised for a moment. "Are you her friend?" "Not really. Just an acquaintance," I replied thoughtfully. He snorted. "Anyone who becomes a mistress isn't exactly a good woman. I give her money. She gives me a smile. If my wife doesn't find out, then she's lucky. If she does, well, that's not my problem. The law says that money given to a mistress comes from the marital assets." I froze. "So, what does that make her?" "Just unlucky." The man shook his head, signed the paper, and left quickly. The wife, before leaving, glanced at the dazed Eva and sneered. "I didn't even know you were getting married today. But my husband's other mistress is catching a flight today. She was afraid I'd show up at the airport, so she gave me your details herself. I had nothing better to do, so I decided to drop by. You've been the mistress for over 20 years, and yet you couldn't get him to divorce me. As far as mistresses go, you're pretty pathetic." With a smirk of triumph, She strutted off, her husband trailing behind like a dog. Eva stood frozen, staring blankly at their retreating figures, her face full of despair. But when she spotted me, her fury erupted. "Have you seen enough? Fiona, are you here to laugh at me? You say you don't care about Luis, but deep down, you're dying to take him back and serve him on your knees. You even sent your daughter to ruin my wedding. How low can you go?" "What did you just say? You're the low one. Don't think everyone's like you." Eva snapped furiously, charging forward, ready to punch her. I quickly pulled her back. Suddenly, I saw Mario grab a chair and smash it over Eva. "You old hag! What right do you have to talk about my mom like that? You act all tough in front of my dad, but behind his back, you're just as filthy." The scene descended into chaos. The shouting of the police, Eva's shrieks, Mario's angry cursing, and Luis's desperate attempts to stop it all blended into a cacophony. Countless voices and images filled my mind. Finally, my gaze fixed on Luis's pale face as he collapsed to the ground. "Call an ambulance. He has a heart condition." Luis was rushed to the ICU. Mario, Eva, and I waited outside. The red light above the door blinked incessantly. Mario sat slumped, unable to meet my gaze. Eva sat next to me, head bowed in silence. We were a family, yet now we felt like three separate camps. The wait seemed endless. I checked my phone and saw a local news notification. I clicked on it and found that Luis and Eva's wedding had made the local headlines. The scene of chaos and destruction splashed across the screen. The headline was sensational, and there were countless comments. Some were outraged, some mocked, and others offered their philosophical takes on life. In the end, Luis had spent his entire life seeking fame, and now he had achieved it in the most ironic way possible. Chapter 13. Luis was resuscitated. He lay weakly in the hospital bed, looking so worn out that it seemed like he had aged 10 years. The doctor said that he had a heart condition to begin with and that his habit of drinking coffee had worsened it, further stressing his heart. From now on, he would have to give up coffee, exercise more, and maintain a positive mindset. I interrupted the doctor. "I'm not a family member. Let me go get the family." I went outside to call Mario, who stared at me in surprise. I spoke calmly. "If you care so much about your father, I hope it's not just because you want his house, but because you actually want him in your life." Mario gritted his teeth and went in, listening attentively and nodding occasionally. I took one last glance at him, then turned to leave. Eva called out to me. I turned back to look at her. I still felt tenderness toward her. She's my daughter, and in the end, I can't cut her off. From the moment she was born, I told myself I would raise her well, just as I would have wanted someone to take care of the younger version of myself. That she grew up the way she did is partly my fault. I lived under the pressures of society and failed to provide her with a shelter from the storm. I also lacked the ability to protect her from being eroded by the same world. So, I don't blame her, just as I don't blame my past self. Life gave us countless small warnings of what our futures might hold. But unfortunately, in our youth, we lacked the sharp eyes and perceptive hearts to see the truth. We weren't able to look clearly or think deeply, and instead, we willingly or unwillingly slipped into a predetermined outcome. I don't blame my younger self. I only want to walk the path ahead of me. I have to forget the mess of the past in order to embrace a better future. My daughter deserves the chance to make mistakes too, only then can she truly grow. Eva said softly. "Mom, I changed my name. I'm now Rose Sunday." I smiled. "It's a beautiful name." Eva smiled too. "Mom, can I visit you often from now on?" I laughed freely. "Of course. The bond between mother and daughter can never be broken. I'm your mother, and I'll always be your mother." "Mom." Eva threw herself into my arms, and I gently patted her back, soothing my silly girl. Our relationship can never go back to what it was, but we can find a new way to interact. A new kind of mother-daughter relationship, one where we are independent, respectful, longing for each other yet separate. I'm still exploring it. I'm not sure if it will succeed, but I want to try. When I reached downstairs, I received a message from Mario on WeChat. "Mom, I'm sorry." I read the message but didn't reply. I wasn't sure if he was just struggling with the situation and trying to lure me back to become Luis's caretaker again. So, I chose not to respond, not to answer, just to wait and see. If he can save himself, he's still my son. If he can't, then that's how it will be. Let's see what he does. Chapter 14. In the early autumn, Luis was finally discharged from the hospital. His health was frail, so he hired a caregiver to manage his daily needs. The caregiver, of course, couldn't meet his every expectation, but he had learned to endure. He took early retirement and refused to go out, since he had gained fame for marrying his mistress. People online had dubbed him a warrior. Whenever he went out, he felt like people were giving him strange looks. He locked himself at home and started sending me philosophical reflections about life. It was then I realized I hadn't blocked him yet. A simple mistake. Once I blocked him, the world went quiet. Eva, meanwhile, was embroiled in legal battles and left the city. In the end, she couldn't win against the original wife. She lost completely, unable to stay in the city she had known so well. At her age, she had to leave her home behind. As for Mario, it seemed he had grown up. Sometimes, he would come by with gifts, but after leaving them at the door, he'd rush off. I guess he still hadn't figured out how to face me. I hadn't figured out how to accept him, either. And so, we kept things this way, not pushing ourselves or each other. It worked. Rose fell in love. She shared details about the man with me, torn between her career and love, unsure if she should marry, unsure if she wanted children. I thought for a moment and replied, "The other day at the police station, I saw that original wife, and to be honest, I envied her. When she faced infidelity, she had the courage and the strength to flip tables and tear things apart. But your mother didn't. I could only shrink within the marriage, surviving in humiliation, being mocked by others, and sometimes even mocking myself for living this way. But when you don't have assets, you don't have the right to be willful. As long as you're alive today, you must figure out how to fill your stomach and keep going." Being swept along by life, I had to numb myself into thinking the future might be better. But I don't want that life for you. I hope that when you face injustice, you'll have both the strength and the means to choose whether or not to flip the table. I hope you won't be forced to follow the tide. A long time later, Sun Lan replied to me, "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for being willing to love me again, even after I hurt you." My new book was published. I didn't expect it to sell so well right out of the gate. Thanks to various short videos, many bloggers were analyzing it, and I thought their interpretations were much better than my own. They approached it from angles I hadn't even considered, and it turned out to be quite popular. The publisher planned a book signing for me. On the day of the event, I received a message from an unknown number. "I've read your book. It's beautifully written. After more than 20 years of marriage, I realize I never truly understood you. It was my arrogance and neglect that led to all of this. If there's another life, I hope I won't make the same mistakes." The message was long, but I was too busy to finish reading it. I deleted it and blocked the number. I picked up the book in my hands and listened as the pretty young woman beside me excitedly told me how much she loved it. It made me happy, and her admiration warmed me. I gently wrote, "Time brings out the flavor. Years distill the fragrance. May you live well, Zoe. I wished that young version of you a lifetime of peace."